Pittsburgh police officer bringing superhero to Homewood. An audio news article by Mark R. Charlton Sr. Page 1. Pretty much, man. I've always been into comic books and stuff, especially black comic books and black superheroes, said Detective Alfonso Fawn Sloan on developing the concept and creation of his Captain Homewood comic book. And one thing I noticed is that Homewood has a stigma about it. Like if somebody is not from Homewood and they Google Homewood in Pittsburgh, the first thing that pops up is whoever got murdered there. You know what I mean? And what I wanted to do was come up with something positive to change the narrative a little bit. So hopefully it will be something that will catch on to whereas we will have something positive to represent Homewood. Sloan, a 27-year veteran of the Pittsburgh Police Department and a Peabody High School class of 1989 alumni, grew up in Garfield, a little more than 3 miles from Homewood, which certainly was not undetected nor meant to be a deliberate slight on not choosing his native neighborhood while constructing his superhero model. You know, we're Garfield dudes. We love Garfield. But Homewood's always been almost like a mecca for like the hood, because you just had so many different establishments, businesses and bars, like a lot of stuff you didn't have in other neighborhoods. And it was a black neighborhood, you know what I mean? Once Sloan decided on Homewood as the Gotham City for his crime fighter to serve and protect its citizens, the name Captain Homewood organically fell into place. It just kind of came to me, and I wanted to do a black superhero, and I wanted it to be from the hood, and basically I was like, you know what, let me name it Captain Homewood, he explains. Sloan said he knows that everybody can't relate to living in Homewood, but he's already received positive feedback from people living in other neighborhoods who can feel his concept and direction. We're coming up with something that can possibly end up being bigger than the individual neighborhood, you know what I mean? And I just think Homewood is just a good place to do it because it's the place that needs more positivity than the rest of the neighborhoods. It needs it the most, it needs it the fastest. Page 2. Sloan's words of urgency do carry some weight behind them. According to an October 22nd article published by theDribLive.com, Homewood has the highest homicide rate since 2010. Flashback 191 years from 2023 to the birth of Homewood in 1832, when it was founded by Judge William Wilkins and later annexed to the city of Pittsburgh in 1834. By 1860, Andrew Carnegie and his brother Thomas moved to Homewood, a then mostly rural area. Apparently, enjoying his new scenery and living quarters, Carnegie convinced some of his close friends to relocate to Homewood, and many of them did, some of whom's names and legacies are still relevant today, even long after their existence, including Henry Clay Frick, George Westinghouse, and H.J. Hines. By 1892, trolley lines were laid from downtown to the East End section of Pittsburgh, including tracks running through Homewood, allowing a diverse group of middle-class residents to move into the newly flourishing neighborhood. By the early 20th century, the population of Homewood ascended with German, Irish, and Italian immigrants, as well as middle-class black families assembling into the working-class community. By the early 1950s, the city of Pittsburgh cleared the Lower Hill District to make room for the building of the Civic Arena. This sudden influx caused thousands of black families to be displaced throughout the city of Pittsburgh. Many of them moved to Homewood, and a majority of them were lower-income families. This triggered a major shift in the racial dynamics and cultural architecture of the divergent neighborhood. On April 5th, 1968, one day after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Pittsburgh, as well as 110 other cities, rioted for several days. The neighborhoods most impacted were the Hill District, the North Side, and Homewood. 3,600 National Guardsmen were called out to contain the disorder. The communities burned for several days, and once the smoke cleared and order was finally restored on April 11th, the aftermath included 1 death and 38 injuries. Over 100 businesses were either vandalized or looted, with arsonists setting 505 fires. Over 1,000 arrests were made by law enforcement, while property damage surpassed $600,000, equivalent to nearly $4.80 million in 2023. And many of those areas, including Homewood, would still be affected in the decades to come. Page 3. By the mid-1980s and early 1990s, the city of Pittsburgh was hit with a severe 1-2 punch that will leave its black communities staggering for years to come. The arrival of crack cocaine in the United States caused an uprise in crime between 1981 and 1986. The Steel City would eventually experience the long-lasting side effects of this horrific but yet quick-ending high. While the small, rocked-up substance circulated rampantly throughout the inner cities, Homewood's residents also received a heavy dose. Many businesses would be destroyed, many families would be broken, and many of their siblings would become strung out on crack. Not yet even close to recovery from the first hit, the Homewood residents would receive a second heavy-handed blow with the birth of the Crips, the first documented gang in the city. Other East End communities would soon follow suit, forming gangs including Garfield, The Hill, East Hills, Larmer, and Wilkinsburg, as the early 90s began the birth of the gang culture. By 1993, Pittsburgh climbed to record-breaking numbers as the total of homicides reached 83, prompting the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette to label it the Year of Death. And during an extended period of time, it was a well-known fact that wearing red in Homewood was forbidden and could result in deadly consequences. From the new millennium and throughout the 2000s, the Homewood community remains crippled by drugs, murder, and violence. After 1.91 centuries and 19.1 decades later, on the verge of Homewood's 191st birthday, Sloan says he's prepared for the challenge. I worked in Zone 5 for about 3 years, so I can also relate. You know, some of my experience in working over there to the comic book itself. Because, I was right there in the trenches. Like I'm there when people are getting shot. I'm there when something is going down and all the drugs and stuff. It was a different world, Sloan confesses. As he was devising his Captain Homewood superhero, Sloan decided to test the waters to get some feedback. When I came up with the cover, I wanted to put it out like a filler just to see how many people are feeling it, he continues. And it was like amazing because out of all the things that I ever put on Facebook, it was the most shared post, you know what I mean? Sloan is quick to admit, although he's ecstatic from the positive feedback received on social media, creating a comic book is definitely a grueling process, especially when you're working solo. Like a lot of comic books, they have a team, and you have one person writing the concept, you have another person doing the sketch, you have another person doing the ink and outline, and you have another person doing the rendering. I'm basically doing everything myself, he explains. Page 4. Once the Captain Homewood comic book is available to the public, Sloan says he already has his target audience in mind. I'm designing the book for all ages. The content is really going to be more of an adult content. The storyline itself is going to be about basically Captain Homewood coming to try and save kids from some real life issues, drugs and guns. Sloan is relying on the parents' support in helping to educate their children by reading the book to them. I'm hoping that the parents, really take a look at it and it's something they introduce to their kids. Aside from preparing to launch Captain Homewood soon, Sloan's plate is already pretty full. His artwork is on display monthly in Pittsburgh Mayor Ed Gainey's office. Sloan explains how his paintings made it to 414 Grant Street. So Ed Gainey's wife, Michelle, started what's called the Pittsburgh Arts Initiative. And what she does is every month there's a different theme. She basically asks artists to take part and put their artwork in the show as it matches up to the theme of the month. So 1 month it was Black History, 1 month it was LGBTQ, November was Indigenous Month, December was the holidays, and January's theme is Everything Pittsburgh. So far, Sloan has been able to keep up with the monthly pace of submitting his artwork, sometimes working on 2 paintings at a time but never missing a deadline. I've been putting it in every month. I don't think I've missed a month yet. I try to do at least 1 new piece every month to match up with the theme of the show, Sloan points out. Gainey, Pittsburgh's 61st mayor and the first African American to ever be elected to the position, is also a fellow Peabody High School graduate like Sloan. Although Gainey graduated a year before Sloan in 1988, the two have been friends long before either of them walked across the stage at Soldiers and Sailors Memorial Hall to receive their high school diplomas. And I'm looking at it, man, like, Ed's not just the mayor, man, he's our friend, Sloan admits. That people tend to believe that knowing the mayor comes with its perks, but those are the furthest thoughts from his mind. And a lot of times, people that we know be like, did you ask him to do this? Or did he do this for you? The way I look at it is, this is our time to make him shine. He doesn't have to do anything for me. Support and make him shine. You know what I mean? You never know. We may never get another black mayor in history. While Sloan continues working diligently to meet the deadline for Captain Homewood's release, his mind is already creating possible spin-offs to his neighborhood crime-fighting comic book character, sort of like a Marvel universe in the hood. I thought about maybe doing like a superhero from each neighborhood. Of course, the next one will have to be from Garfield. You know what I mean? Page 5. But in the meantime, Sloan is keenly crafting the imagery to look identical to that of the neighborhood his superhero serves. It's going to be like realistic areas, like I have Westinghouse. Like, I don't know if you noticed, the cover itself that I made, that's actually the corner of Homewood Avenue and Frankstown. Every scene is going to be like from an actual area, in Homewood, or over on the East End, somewhere to where people be like, yo man, that's my street. As Sloan prepares to bring Captain Homewood to a neighborhood near you, the comic book creator has to do it while still juggling his full-time job. Sloan has been working as a detective for the graffiti unit of the Pittsburgh Police Department the past 14 years. Prior to graduating from the academy in 1995, Sloan himself was a graffiti artist back in the early to mid-1980s and a member of TVA, the Versatile Artist, arguably the most talented group of teenage artists ever assembled in the city of Pittsburgh. In 2023, many of the TVA artists, including Sloan, remain close friends while maintaining continued success using their God-given artistic talents well into their 40s and 50s. So, for those wondering when you can finally receive your own personal copy of Captain Homewood, Sloan says The wait won't be much longer. Definitely in 2023, I'd like for it to be in the first half. I was shooting for the spring, but it may be early summer or so, but definitely by 2023, it'll be set in stone and ready to go, Sloan promises. And the timing couldn't be better for the Homewood community in its 191st birthday. Mark R. Charlton Sr. is a writer from Pittsburgh and the author of the novel Garfield Heights, and can be reached at markcproductions@gmail.com.